So what was it today teaching?
Practical, the crossover between practical and tactical shooting, and how you can set up and structure training that is beneficial to both.
Right. What do you think is the primary difference if you had to define practical shooting versus
application?
Shooting?
There's no difference. Shooting is shooting. It's just the application. What you apply, how you apply what you do in the marksmanship side, how you apply your shooting is based on the requirements of whatever you're doing. Mm-hmm. So if you are shooting in a practical competition, you will apply the marksmanship fundamentals in a certain way. You'll reload in certain locations, or it's more about the requirements of the particular skill venue you're in. So if it's practical shooting, it's really more about when you do certain things like reloading your gun or how you move, as opposed to tactical shooting. Like I'll drop a magazine that's partially full and move to another position. Shooting in a USPSA match, you really, it wouldn't be prudent to do that from a combative, perspective, if you are leaving it cover with a partially loaded gun. So you would do a magazine exchange instead of just dropping a partial magazine and leave with a fully loaded magazine. You do an exchange, load your gun completely, stow that, and then leave so you take your ammunition with you. Sure. And in USPSA, you wouldn't retain anything. Now, if you look at IDPA, now there's certain things where you have to retain it unless it's empty. So you start looking at the game you're playing or the situation that you're in. It's going to drive how you apply the fundamentals of marksmanship.
Makes absolute sense. So shooting's still shooting.
Yeah,
it's all about
shooting.
mastering
That's
the
all
basics.
It is, just shooting.
Just in terms of how you sequence it or how you pre-visualize what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. So it's still kind of tactics. It's just whether it's tactics for points.
Well, we call strategy, like stage strategy for USPSA. That's kind of like tactics is strategy. One is against a dynamic adversary. One is against a static drill.
Sure.
But it's strategy and tactics start to become the two the two ways that you employ certain techniques.
That makes absolute sense. So when you're out on the road, what's the ratio of students that you're teaching now? Is there a lot of open enrollment versus law enforcement, military?
I've been doing almost entirely law enforcement. I've had nothing but law enforcement work for quite a while now, and a fair amount of it. I'll do some open enrollment stuff, but it's not that common just because of the volume, and I want to spend my time with law enforcement because they're having a rough go of it lately. So I'm trying to help everyone I can.
It's been a little tough. Yeah, not gonna lie.
Totally.
What kind of skills and what kind of knowledge are they wanting to learn from you, coming from the cops side?
I think it's just refining their ability to use a firearm to defend themselves and defend their partner and protect the general public. There's been a real, in the last 2 years, there's been a normalization of violence in general without provocation in our society. There's been a normalization of guns in public. There's been a normalization of violence against police. Yeah. It used to be if a police officer was shot and killed, it was a big deal. Now it's like, oh, another cop was killed here, and it's just like an also ran. It's not even. It used to be a real big deal, and it's happening quite a bit. They just had an officer killed here in Houston last night, I think it was. So it's like it's become really an issue, and the seriousness of the job and their hard skills with firearms has become really important to them. So that's where it's really coming from.
So with all your operational experience, how much does mindset come into all of this on top of just the practical skills?
Mindset is how you live your life. Mindset is not. It's not a briefing. It's not. It's just. It's being under no illusions as to who you are and what you do and what you're capable of doing, and at that point, then you train yourself to be able to apply whatever those skills are in the most appropriate manner. But the idea, mindset, I think, is just being realistic. If you're a police officer and you carry a badge and a gun, you need to understand why those two go together.
For sure.
And you need to be prepared for it. You need to have the appropriate mindset, which is a sense of willingness and a desire to train on that. But it's not. I'm not a Till Valhalla guy and all that stuff. I just think that's silly. It doesn't serve any purpose. I mean, if you're just a regular dad or mom, you still need to have the proper mindset, which is a willingness to defend yourself and your family. I think that just comes from understanding what your responsibilities are.
For sure, whether it be on the citizen side or the
exactly.
Side. That's outstanding. I like it. Yeah, I mean, I've been on for 15 years myself, so it's really encouraging and heartening, quite frankly, to see people with such skill sets and such experience coming to help the civilian domestic law enforcement side out. So I think that's really important. Where do you think the industry needs to go with the two-way community being kind of pretty diverse, and there's definitely been a lot of...
In what regard? You mean?
Just in terms of as the shooting community evolves and develops, you know, somebody has been in for as long as you have and kind of seeing how training modalities have changed and how kind of people's philosophies have changed when it comes to shooting, whether it be recreational or more defensive minded. What do you think are some of the more important, I guess, core values you'd like to see get pushed
I'd like
forward?
to see people get back to working on the fundamentals of shooting, like just marksmanship. Stop dirtying up the process by talking about tactical versus practical and all the other stuff. Just shoot well. Shooting is a component skill. And getting away from trying to split that off into two different things. If you can shoot really well, then you can apply it in practical shooting at a match, or you can apply it tactically in the environment you work in. But they're all the same hard skills. And so the idea of trying to separate the two, to me, I think is just silly.
I hear that.
I mean, I wish they would stop that and just focus on shooting. Also, on the shooting side, the culture, I think that one of my friends, Matt, says it all the time. It said, you know, Instagram is ruining shooting one video at a time. Everybody does their one and done, and they're not putting out content to be educational and necessarily to reflect well on the Second Amendment or shooters in general. They're putting out entertainment, and I think that's kind of silly. I've also seen some people that are instructors in the industry that will show pictures of, oh, here's my new whatever gun and my, you know, Microtech folding knife, and there's a glass of scotch there, and I'm like, it just looks unprofessional having guns and knives and a glass of booze right there. I'm like, that kind of stuff is for entertainment value. So you can go, look at me, I'm a cool guy with all my fancy guns and knives and my expensive scotch. I just think it's silly.
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And social media being just a reality of the game now.
Yeah.
You know, what message are you pushing forth with your channel or with
It's
the
just
stuff you're
knowledge. It's just being. I mean, my little tagline for my company is "The magic is there's no magic." There's nothing fancy here. It's kind of a blue collar work ethic thing. Like just go out there and train and do the component skills, the simple basic things. Do them really well.
That makes sense. How's your experience been with Shooting Symposium? How many times have you been
This
teaching
is
here?
the third time I've been here. It's always been enjoyable. I'm always concerned about having just a one-day block because I'm trying to put as much in as I can, but I don't want to overwhelm the people. And there's always disparate levels of skill. There's people that are extremely talented and people that are relatively new. So I got to kind of manage that. It makes it a little bit of a challenge at times, but it's always, you know, good to get out there and get a feel for what people are doing and carrying and saying and how that community is, because I am really kind of sequestered on the law enforcement side.
Yeah. Is it still fun for you?
Oh yeah, I still enjoy it. I mean, when I stop enjoying it, I'll stop doing it.
For sure.
But I enjoy passing on that knowledge in a manner that makes sense to people. That's not, there's no smoke and magic beans. I'm just putting out what I know to be true and usable and functional, and I'm getting past all the, like I said, all the flamboyance of it. It's like I said, the magic is there's no magic. It's like, just if you do simple shooting really well, I mean, you watch some of the greatest shooters in the world, and it looks pretty magical, but it's not. It's just the same stuff that everybody else is doing. They're just doing it so well and so fast that it looks amazing. So the idea that it has to be flashy, doing something really well, doing anything really well is flashy. Yeah. So, and then getting, you know, trying to replicate that through some fancy camera work on a social media is like,
with the epic music in the background.
Yeah, exactly. I see through it. So.
No, I dig it. I dig it a lot. If there were some people that were like kind of on the fence about coming to Shooter Symposium, what would you say to them just in terms of value?
I'd say it's an opportunity to get a really broad brush appreciation for different instructors and different skills and, you know, different techniques. You may even take two classes that are by different instructors that cover some of the same stuff, and you'll see how two different people see it. It's there's really high level people that come here in the industry, so you've got pretty well known vetted instructors, and you can do a lot of different stuff. So it's a benefit to give you even if you just go once, it gives you an opportunity to sample a bunch of different instructors and see what fits your requirements or your style of shooting or your personality or whatever. And then as you go forward, you can go, oh yeah, I've shot with him or with her or with them, and I think it helps guide you through the industry, and you'll be around a bunch of like-minded people that you can ask people about certain stuff, or you'll see guns that you've only seen on Instagram, and you go, hey, how do you like that? How long have you had that? Or have you had problems with that optic? Or there's a lot of collective knowledge here that I think people can really access.
Absolutely. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much
for
taking the time.
Thanks.
I really appreciate having a little bit more of just a more casual, intimate conversation.
Yeah. Cool, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.